I'm here, Margaret. I'm going to join on my phone personally so you can see my video.
Hello,
Hey, Margaret.
how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right. Tired, but I'm here.
I feel ya.
Showing up's half the battle, right?
It really is. Anan, is this you joining?
Yes, this is me joining.
Excellent. I am going to rename you so that
Oh boy, thank you. I appreciate that.
that
Because I have no idea how to do that.
Mhm.
Yay!
Yay.
Thank
Woohoo!
you.
Thank you for turning on the recording and the note taking. It's much appreciated.
You're very welcome.
It really is.
I'm gonna have to turn off my air conditioner, unfortunately. Not
Hey
only does
Margaret, if
yes,
if if you had some earphones, maybe you wouldn't need to turn it off.
well, I do have some earbuds, but then I would have to
Does it have a microphone in it?
oh yeah, I'd have to put them on my laptop, but I wear them all day.
Oh, I'm sorry. Your ears are probably sore.
Or no, I just, it's better to take them out.
Oh, sure.
I
Absolutely.
don't want them in 24/7. I actually normally just wear one and then I'll wear another one. I need to get some new ones. I have some nice Samsung ones. They cost me
Oh,
a
that's cool.
bit, but they don't. I need one with the loop around my ear
Oh yeah. Yeah.
because after a while they start to fall out.
Well, especially on days like this, we're inevitably going to get a little sweaty, and then things just go pop, So there you
Right.
go.
And I find that the rubber peels don't last very long, and it depends on how long my hair is.
Yeah,
My
sure.
hair makes a difference, and it grows so
Yeah,
fast.
yeah, all those things.
How was your meeting?
It was good, very productive.
Good.
I was able to get the note taker to do its job properly. It's probably got access to the video of it too, but I'll get back to that later.
Thank you very much for taking care of that.
I am just lucky to have found it. I mean, we were looking. I had heard there was something out there, but it was kind of hard to find. But we did, and so now we have it. And there undoubtedly will be some days I can't do this because I'm not here. So it would be good if somebody else had access to it at some point too. It's a download for Zoom called Fathom, uh, Fathom.
So
Doesn't
it's not on our room. You had to actually put
no
it on your computer.
yes.
Okay.
At least access to it. It's actually an online thing, but you have access to it through something on your computer. So yeah.
Well, I don't even know how to start a Zoom meeting, so
No, I was able to before. Something changed, and I don't know what it was, but I used to be able to start one, and now I can't. I can, so
Just,
I don't know what happened.
just wanted to let you all know that it's 7, and so I'm going to let in the members of the public, which
Yay!
there aren't tons, but just letting you know.
thank you.
Sure.
Hi, Gail.
Okay, I'm gonna be quiet and sit in the back.
Just want to remind people to keep your microphones muted as you are joining the meeting. And also want to let everyone know that we are recording this meeting. No one needs to have their video on if they don't feel like it, but the meeting is currently being recorded.
How about we give it a couple more minutes?
That sounds great.
Stephen, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Margaret. How are you?
I'm good. You know, the same as everyone. A little beat up from the smoke, but hey.
Yeah, we've just been hunkering down with the heat pump going on the cooling setting and the room filter doing its best to get the crap out of the air before we inhale it.
I'm gonna text Doriandra and see where she is.
She's I'm probably just getting off a different CBO related meeting and hopping ships between meetings.
Ah, she's good at that.
And Doriandra and I were in the previous health and safety. Oh, there she is. There she is.
Hey,
Oh, sorry.
so
It's Rupert.
excuse me?
I was just saying hi to Doriandra's cat, Rupert.
Ah,
I hope we get a lavender sighting, Claire.
Unfortunately, I'm at my office, so not tonight, but at a future.
All right. All right. Good.
okay, so I don't think Thea had some prior commitments. I don't think she'll be here with us tonight. But everybody welcome to the Whiteaker Community Council Board meeting. It is August 16th, 2023. Traditionally, we give the first 10 minutes for public comment. And then we ask after the public comment to just let the board, you know, you're welcome to stay and participate as far as watching goes, but we just ask you not to say anything. And for, as you can see, Claire put in the chat on the right, for record keeping purposes, we do need to keep a track of attendance. So we would ask that you please direct message Claire Roth and let her know who you are, if you live, work, or own property in the Whiteaker. And please send your address if possible. Also, we're going to start, I know that Saoirse is working hard on getting an email list together so that we can email events, things like we're getting ready to have an ice cream social. We would like to have an email list for people so that we can send you our list of events as they come up. Do we have any public comment at the moment? All right, that makes it easy. So my name is Margaret. I'm the chair. Just so a couple of announcements. We had a great fundraiser at Oakshire. They were very pleasant. It was great to, you know, just go out there and go in the public and meet some people. We did get, I met a lady there who I think was with the band. You know, we want to publicly thank Julie Bowman, who set us up with Victor from Boxcar Figaro, who was a great band. We had a gal, I believe that she was with them. She told me she lived over by Valley River. She's actually going to mail us in a donation. So she was really excited about doing that. And it looks like all total, including the $10 I still have that was in the jar, I put it right here so I wouldn't forget it. We made about $240. So that will be mailed into the PO box. I don't see Dennis here, but that will he checks the PO box. Movie night, in case that you didn't know, has been canceled due clearly to the smoke and the heat and all of that. And we are discussing perhaps as the weather cools down, perhaps even if it's raining, about finding a location where we can do it inside. I know, for instance, like Oakshire, they have a room in the back that sometimes they have things in. We could go to Ninkasi, maybe the hybrid, but it would be a great activity to do in the winter when it's raining. Oh, let's see. You all got the email regarding train song, I assume. And that they're looking to, I think they actually want to be considered part of the Whiteaker and dissolve the train song neighborhood. If I understand what they're saying is correct, is that we would, there's 880 addresses in train song. I had a long conversation with Cindy Kohler, and for those of you that remember, they are rewriting the charter. The city is, and they're going to ask each neighborhood association to adopt a charter, the same one. And in doing that, they're also going to create a way so if a neighborhood wants to join another neighborhood and join their neighborhood association, that they can do that. There's not really a way to do that now, but she told me by December that there would be. So I invited them to start attending our meetings to participate, and we can see how it goes. A gentleman named Stephen, I believe, Saoirse, you spoke to him?
Yes, I did. I met him and one other person from Chainsong, who I don't remember their name, at the WCC fundraiser, and they don't have a neighborhood association at all, or like
Correct.
really anything happening, and so they would just like to have a mechanism for community involvement and engagement, which seems pretty fair.
Yeah, they definitely are excited about belonging to a neighborhood association. Not only would it provide us with a larger pool of people that maybe wanted to volunteer and do things, it would also expand our addresses, which would mean that I believe it would mean we would get more money quarterly from the city. It would do a lot of things. So I just invited them to start joining our meetings, which I believe that they probably will do at the next general meeting. And then we'll just kind of play it by ear, see how it goes, see if it's a good fit. Andrew, did you have a question?
You're
I
muted.
can't hear you.
Got my hand up. I got this right. Potentially more event community oriented space as well in that neighborhood where there's a plethora of old warehouses and wide open spaces for things like movie nights and whatnot. But really the idea, the hand is, I spoke to a friend of mine who's lived and owned a home in the train song and lived there for the last year or so, and he's very much on board with the idea of joining forces, neighborhood community forces. So second the notion to that.
Fantastic. And like I said, at this point, really through the city, there is no way for us to actually do it. They do not have a process to make that happen. But, you know, our meetings are open to the public. Everyone can come. They experience a lot of the same issues that we do. So there's no reason why we don't invite them and just have them come and, you know, see how it goes. And Anand, you're talking about a survey of the neighborhood itself, of the train song neighborhood?
Yeah, I'm just thinking there are a lot of ways this could pan out. Obviously, inviting them to come to the meetings is great. I mean, there's no such thing as too much participation. That's fantastic. But in terms of folding their neighborhood into ours, I just want to make sure that the people who live there are into it, and not just the few representatives we run into.
Right.
And there could be different ways it could happen too, and that's worthy of quite a bit of discussion.
Right. And I think part of how it happened was when the city did that, we actually did it as well. They took each neighborhood and did a survey.
Uh-huh.
And I believe that was the beginning of getting the idea of Trainsong getting the idea of joining the Whiteaker. For them, it would be Whiteaker, it would be River Road or Bethel Danabo. And from what I gather and from the conversation, and there's still a long way to go, is
Sure.
that they definitely have more in common with us than any of the other neighborhoods, and are along the same wavelength. So, you know,
Cool.
we'll just see how it goes. It's not even something that we can do or talk about doing until January. So there's lots of
Yeah.
time.
Good. That's great. That's fine.
So really quick, let's see, I made myself some notes. We do need to do a mailer. But we'll talk about that. So since Thea isn't here, we do have some guests that are here to talk to us about Scober Gardens. I believe that they are the architects. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
So this is Matt Kohler, and he has a little bit of a plan that he wants to share with us about what their vision is for Scober Garden.
Yes, thank you. Is it possible? I'm assuming, do we have screen sharing opportunities so that?
Yeah, Saoirse can do that with you.
Let me check right now. You are able to screen share right now, Matt.
Okay, perfect. So Alexis will be the one that will be screen sharing. Excellent. So, well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for including us as part of your agenda this evening. My name is Matt Kohler. I'm a principal with Cameron McCarthy, Landscape Architecture and Planning, and I'm joined this evening by Alexis Griffin, a landscape designer and public engagement specialist, and Allie Langley, assistant planner and public engagement specialist, both from Cameron McCarthy as well. You can see our lovely pictures here, or I like to say my much younger looking picture. Emily Proudfoot and Rex Redmond, they're the leads from the Park and Open Space Department, but they couldn't be here this evening as they're both away on vacations, hopefully someplace with a lot less smoke than what we're dealing with. So this evening, we'd like to just spend about 15 minutes or so relaying where we're at in the process, and then we'd like to leave about 15 minutes to hear from you all and have a conversation about Scober Gardens. So to start, I'd like to let you know kind of where we are in the design and public involvement process and what comes next. Although Alexis will go more in depth on kind of what's next in a few minutes. Right now, we're at the stakeholder conversation piece in our timeline, and that's the circle you see here on the screen. And we began this process a couple of months ago with our first neighborhood workshop. And then last month we did our park walk site visit with neighborhood members. We're now in this stakeholder conversation and meeting with various stakeholders such as yourselves to gather as much information and input as possible to allow for a collaborative design of the park. We're planning to use all this information that we are provided to kind of help guide the continued development of 2 park concepts that will be then presented back to the community in mid-September for additional comments and conversations and input. So it's kind of to say that we're going to have more future opportunities to continue to collaborate with you all over the next few months. As part of this design process, we're utilizing a coexistence framework to really help kind of guide the dialogue to the design process.
Yeah, so if I can, I'd love to talk to you a little bit about this. Through this coexistence framework, we're trying to understand within Scope Park the undesirable uses and behaviors that have been seen since really the conception of the park itself in the 1980s. Some of this can be addressed by design and some cannot. And we're really wanting to create a park design that's comfortable for all neighbors, families, our unhoused community members, but one that discourages illicit behaviors. Successful redesign can't really work with just our design in collaboration with the city. And we really want to encourage in this process the many faces and facets of the Whiteaker community. We want to incorporate comments from local businesses, local organizations, volunteers, unhoused folk, as well as understanding that the city will be involved to ensure that this design success is created through the encouragement of coexistence within Scobert Park.
So this is the existing park, something I know you're all very familiar with. So I'm not going to go into a depth about describing all the existing elements. You're, I'm sure, familiar with the playground, the fencing that's there, and those components. But I do want to touch base on two items that are maybe the unseen or not maybe fully understood by all community members. And the first one is that this has an actual, it's a historic landscape overlay on the park. I say that, but also note that the landscape that set this designation has been removed over the years. And so, but it is something that we want to keep in mind as we're designing, that there was this history of the landscape that was in the park. The second component is that the kind of, we call it the dog leg, the extension of the park that is at the bottom. If you were to take the kind of north and south lines and run it all the way across the park, east to west, that is a public easement. And it's because of utilities and subgrade and above grade infrastructure. So most of those neighbors that are along that area, their power comes from that back area, the sanitary and storm, all the kind of subgrade utilities run through that area. And so that does create constraints as to what can be constructed or done in those areas because of those subgrade utilities. So that's kind of just a light touch. I just wanted to kind of provide a little bit of additional components to what is existing. And maybe now what I'll do is we can just jump into the two park concepts that are they're at the beginning here. And what I want to explain is that these are just ideas that we've taken from those that we've been speaking with, the input we've received. I want to kind of make it clear that there may be elements and pieces that people like from each of these designs, and it's very common. We kind of design at the start here with a term called kit of parts, where we kind of look at, hey, a lot of these items could be, you might like something from one and something from another and have another idea. And the idea is to, in the future, be able to merge those together into a single concept for the community. So I'm going to start with concept one that we've been working through. And the idea here is, number one is you're going to see a lot of symbols that are circles with pluses in them. And those are all the existing trees that are on site. And our main and top priority has been to maintain and protect all the existing trees that are in good condition. What we've then done is look to do in this concept a public kind of paved plaza at the north end of the park adjacent to the street that's kind of more focused on the northwest corner. And this is really about providing a little bit more paved space for events in the park, set up for things like your ice cream social or your music events, your movies at the park. It also provides a little bit more accessible space within the park for those that may not be fully able-bodied. We're playing with some scoring patterns and paving textures that could make that space interesting, introducing potentially a few new trees that have seating opportunities underneath them. But that there's a little bit of hard surface space at the front of the park that allows for some community use. We are then looking at, in this design, a meandering path that works its way through the park, about 6 feet wide, that is paved concrete, that allows a fully accessible route through the park to kind of engage all the way to the back. And I'm sure one of the first things that people are seeing with this is we have gotten rid of and removed the existing fencing that is cutting the park in half. That has been a top item that people have been asking after the trees is we want more of our park space. We don't like looking through this fence into unused public space. And so we have really looked in this concept and in both concepts to remove and push that back. Now we understand why it was installed originally, and we are providing that still that same kind of secondary buffer in these designs by utilizing a rain garden in the south end of the park that would have that similar type of fencing or same type of fencing in front of it. And that provides this kind of 15-foot buffer that can collect some storm water and still provides that double fenced buffer to the neighbors to the south. But what this does is open up an enormous amount of your parkland back into the park. We've also then looked at, there's been a lot of conversations about the dog leg space, and there is that current agreement right now with some of the adjacent property owners in the city to they take care of that space and they have a kind of garden space back there. And what we've heard is there's a desire to pull that out a little bit and provide it as more of a community garden space. And so this concept is looking at stretching that out so that it's visible, but that it would still need to be secured because it's hidden back there. And so that fencing is now kind of in that zone. And so what we've really done is open up the majority of the existing parkland to day-to-day use. What we heard again from the community that and the neighbors as we did the sidewalk and the first meeting was that lawn space, lawn space, lawn space. We want lawn. We want areas that we can lay out, that the kids can play in. It keeps visual openness to the park. And so the darker green space is what we're calling open lawn. And it is more of your standard mown, finished lawn, similar to what you have in parts of your park now, but it is that traditional lawn space. That is housed in this concept within the meandering path. And then on the outside of the meandering path is a lighter green, what we're calling an eco or a low grow lawn mix. And this is more of an idea that we could do a clover mix, something that doesn't need to be mown quite as often, wildflowers, something that provides a low growing opportunity that is good for our pollinators, also a different textural component that I know children would love. Yet it's not tall enough that it's creating hiding spaces, anything like that. It's just a different textural grass material. So what you'll notice here is we really don't have a lot of plant beds, and that is on purpose in these concepts to try to keep the park as open and porous as possible. In this concept, we've looked at taking the existing park playground space and kind of breaking it apart and going, what if we did park play area zones? So as you're walking and meandering along the path, kids running around the path, they can dip into these play areas that might be more nature play focused. So a twist on your traditional playground space. As we've, like I noted before, we've had a couple of new trees at the front, but the one thing that this park has is amazing existing trees, and we kind of want to bring those more to attention. We've started to add in additional amenities, and we'll continue to do that: bike racks, trash receptacles, water fountains, benches in specific areas to allow for parents to pause at the play areas and for just general park users. And one of the big components that I kind of missed as I was walking us through the park is the introduction of an actual stage into the park. And when I say stage, this is a 12 to 18 inch tall paved stage that you can step up onto with depth that would allow your music performances in the park to have kind of a main central space for musicians to set up. It also allows wonderful spaces for kids to kind of play on and do their own self performances. We've located it in the zone that you currently set up for your music in the parks. I attended the first one this summer and it was lovely. And I completely understood why and how it's set up there. Beyond the need to pull power from the neighboring house, we'll have power throughout the park in this option and lights. This location seemed to allow the music and the noise to be directed kind of away from a majority of the neighborhood. And it also was a great location with the setting sun in the evenings and allowing those shade from the existing structures and trees to stretch out over the park. So this is concept one. Concept two has a lot of the same elements, just kind of reshaped and looked at in a slightly different way. We've stayed with the kind of community garden space and the rain garden in the south end, reshaped the rain garden just a little bit to provide a little bit more on that corner. But this is looking away from a meandering path approach and more to this kind of oval and that how it radiates out. And this was after hearing a number of people say it'd be great to roller skate around the park or our kids to be able to run in a circle or ride their bikes through. And in this version, we're doing that. And in the meandering path option, you kind of connect back to the public sidewalk and move through. And this kind of pulls it into the park and allows that movement to be more internal. We've located a stage in a similar location. We've created this plaza space at the front that has two new trees, and then actually the existing apple tree, we've pulled it into the paved space and allowed some benches to occur under all of those trees. At the south end, we've also, the idea of the open lawn and eco lawn is kind of, instead of being internal to the path and external, it's bisected through. So it's looking at that more passive space being at the rear of the park, putting more of the activity in the front. Still active in both locations, just the more open lawn versus that wildflower mix. We've included the idea of reintroducing the orchard back to the park with some orchard trees within that wildflower low growing mix. And in this version, we've kind of located a singular play area that would be a combination of that traditional play structure and natural elements, similar to what the basis of your existing structure is with the stonework and then platforms, but that the play area is kind of located into the tree area. It's in a much more visible location than it currently is from all directions. And it really is about allowing children to play in the play area, and the open lawn and eco lawn kind of is on both sides, so they can interact with either side. And finally, in this option, we've kind of extended the park further to the north. We have gone to a curbless edge by extending the park edge out about 8 feet into the roadway, taking over the parking that's right in front of the park and made it more pedestrian access. And so those little bump outs set the edges of the parking. And then now that whole curbless edge allows bikes, when the streets close and there's performances or events or the market, you can, along that whole edge, walk directly into the park from the street itself. Yet it's protected on both ends from vehicles just kind of pulling there. Again, this one as well has amenities that we would be adding in with bike parking, trash receptacles, benches, kind of all of those components. So these are the two concepts we've come up with currently that are just really about us wanting to share the ideas we've heard so far, and then have a conversation with you all about the next steps and input and ideas to continue to grow these. And that kind of gets us into talking about the next steps of our process.
Yeah, so some of you might have received word that we're trying to have conversations with local businesses. You might have seen those invites or know friends that might want to be invited. We're having those conversations next week, so please join if you're a local business owner to speak from that perspective. That's all happening within August. You can feel free to reach out to me or Allie. I think, if you don't mind, Allie putting our emails in the chat. Surveys, as it says here, will launch around the same time that our second neighborhood workshop is going to happen. We're hoping to have it in the park in September, but the smoke has been so weird that we might have to have a backup plan. So stay tuned for that. We'd love to see you all there. But you can really look forward to seeing updated concepts. We'll still have 2 concepts, but they'll be morphing and moving and changing as we receive feedback from y'all. So what I'd like to make sure that we can get from you after, having this next 15 minutes of conversation is consolidated feedback sent from your council. I've been in contact with Thea, so she has all 3 of our emails, but if you all could consolidate any comments you feel didn't get addressed or heard as a part of our Q&A, we'd love to have those consolidated sent to me and Ali and Matt, and we'd love to incorporate that feedback into the next set of drawings. So I will open it up now, stop sharing for a moment so I can see those faces.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
I think we have Claire in the queue.
Claire.
Hello. I had my camera off earlier because I'm in my office. It's 1,000 degrees in here. Anyway, so I have 2 questions, and the first one is quicker. So there was a historical element mentioned earlier about the park. Are those the cherry trees that I saw on the map?
Yes, ma'am. So the only historic vegetation that I could account for within the park were the cherry trees that are currently being protected by the neighbors in what we call the dog leg. So those are the only ones that exist from the smorgasbord of historic vegetation that existed at the park's conception.
And what does protected by the neighbors mean?
Yeah, so a couple years ago, the city of Eugene created is it called a memorandum of understanding, or was it a park agreement?
It's like an agreement, a park agreement. Okay.
Yes, so there was a park agreement between the neighbors on all 3 sides of what we call the dog leg for them to renovate and take care of the space, acting as a community garden. And unfortunately, we don't have a city member to talk about it further, but they are open to questions on that too. We can't clarify anything for you. Thank you.
And then my second question is also about the community garden. So in the graphic, when I read community garden space, I think community use. Is there any room for discussion about having it be an actual community garden space rather than just for the immediate residents? It could be adopted by a school or a nonprofit for educational purposes and run by volunteers, not necessarily open to the public at all hours due to concern about it being tucked out of sight, which is understandable. But maybe open for a limited amount of hours run by volunteers. I see there being a cool program where the Whiteaker Community Market adopts the garden and does educational work about growing your own food. But I might be getting ahead of myself there.
Nope, Claire, you are hitting it right on the button. Basically, that is what we have heard through this, is there were those that weren't aware of what was happening back there. And those neighbors had done a great job of kind of cleaning up an area that was underused and kind of hidden. But that is one of the reasons our concepts are kind of showing it pulled out is we were hearing from a lot of individuals, we would like to have that be more community garden space versus just garden space. And so I think we want to continue to hear feedback from you all and others about ideas and opportunities for how community can engage with that space. And yes, we've shown it fenced because I think you were 100% correct. Like there are times in the evening we probably need to close it off because it's hidden from view, but that it needs to be and wants to be accessible by more members of the community. And so that
This meeting is being recorded.
Just so, like I said, Thea was unable to make it, but she will watch the video and see what happened. And any questions or emails that people have, please forward them to Thea, and she is our park and safety liaison. So, she'll
translate anything that there is.
Gail, I think you're
Yes, hi. Thank you. First of all, thanks for coming and telling us about this progress. As a former resident of the region bordering the back part of the Scober Gardens, I have a particularly personal connection to that space, to the space behind that's been cut off from the community for all this time. And I was horrified to hear that the city had, without opening it up to anyone else, entered into a park adoption agreement with anyone in the neighborhood, since it costs money and requires a wait list to get into every other community garden in town. So I found that horrifying. So I'm really hoping that whatever your plan is involves removing those particular individuals from the privilege they have been they've been receiving to the loss of the rest of the neighborhood, and choosing someone who, or someone's, or some organization that better represent the underrepresented members of our community who don't have the funds to be able to afford community garden spaces that exist, nor do they necessarily have the means to be in a long wait. But more important than that is the fact that none of these plans so far mention bathrooms. The number one problem that we have in our neighborhood, aside from housing, is bathrooms. Everybody poops, everybody pees, and I'd personally prefer they do it in an appropriate space and not in my front yard and not along my fence and not along anybody else's and not in the middle of the alley and not in the places that we walk near the river, because everybody has to do this. It's a human need, and this is a very important central area in our community. It is near many things that happen outdoors without bathrooms, including our Whiteaker Community Market, which has been bringing bathrooms in and paying for porta potties all this time. This is a public service and it belongs in a public park. And I want to hear that there's going to be some serious push to make that better.
So, no, thank you very much for the comments on the community garden. It's what we've been hearing, and that'll definitely be continued to be passed along. And I think you can see that that's the direction we're headed, is to try to make it an amenity for everyone. The bathrooms are a great point, and I will tell you that it is it's a very high topic that we are conversing with, and we have not shown a location for a bathroom in these two concepts as of yet. There has been a lot of discussion as to it is fully understood by the design team and by the city that bathrooms are needed. Believe me, when our office, including Alexis and I were the two working, doing the farmers market pavilion and the concept design for the park blocks downtown, we pushed for and have a bathroom that was installed there. It's a loo style. There's also one down by the river, and those have been working rather well. The current discussion happening within the city and with our design team is, what is the appropriate location? This size of park, the city normally doesn't do bathrooms in the park. So the question becomes is, should it be in the park? Should it be somewhere near the park, but in the neighborhood? Where is the best space for it to have the highest potential for success? Because yes, as a father of two much older children now, as in costing me money for college, I remember being at parks and going, where do we go? Where do we go? And so it is a human need and a human right. And we are working to determine the best opportunity for including restroom facilities that would be accessible and close by for park users. We have, just to be honest, heard both negative and positive reactions from when the portables were in the park. So we're trying to determine the best way to locate restrooms that are permanent and that have the highest rate of success.
All right, thank you. Anand?
Hi. I'd like to compliment you for all the work you've been doing. Some of your designs look really interesting. I really like the idea of including wildflowers and more natural areas within the park, because I think children will really love that a lot. And I think it's really nice to introduce them to something that's a little less tailored, right? I think that's a great idea. I would like to address the restroom issue from a slightly different direction. We've had your boss here on several occasions, and we had the same discussion. And she actually agreed that one of the major problems is because there are too few restrooms, so that the few that there are get trashed. This is a much bigger issue. And I think that the Parks and Recreation Department really needs to look at it instead of just a single park. They need to look at, you need a certain number of restrooms for a certain number of people. of like, oh, I don't know, OSHA regulations, right? You have a certain number of people who need certain number of restrooms, and the city should be providing those. Actually, they should be required to provide those. So I think the issue is not so much having a restroom at the park. There should be one. The problem is that there should also be restrooms every block or so that you're not all concentrated in that one spot. That would solve a whole lot of problems if the people who had the money would just be a little bit more humane. So that's all I got to say.
I think that's a great comment. And yes, Emily, who is with the Parks Department, has noted that. In fact, at the neighborhood meeting and the park site walk that we did, that yeah, we need more bathrooms throughout. The city has been testing, and so far have been successful with the two kind of loo style. And is everyone kind of generally aware of what I'm meaning when I say the loos? They're kind of built after the Portland Loo. There's one down by the park blocks near the farmers market and Saturday market, and then there's one at the new riverfront park. And those have been tested as ideas of how to provide potential more bathrooms throughout our area. But yes, I recognize and definitely fully agree that the bathroom situation is larger than a single location. However, every single location we can put one helps build to a chance of having more throughout our community.
Thank you. So I'm next in the queue, but you actually already answered my question. And personally, I love the design. I think that they both, concept 1 and 2, both have some great ideas. It would be hard for me to choose which one to go with. There are, and I see Saoirse, you're in the queue, and Jen, but really quick. So Drew put some questions. And I just want to say thank everybody too for having the patience and just waiting till they were done with their presentation to get to this point to where we could ask the questions. Just like for me, my question was already answered by the time we got to the end. Low grow garden, drainage for a potentially wet environment, flood remediation. Drew? Andrew, did you put that in there?
I did. It's not. I mean, I was just thinking out loud in text form.
Okay.
And it looks like maybe that's already in there in the drainage area.
Okay. And I actually thought the idea of a partially covered wind and rain protected shelter would be a great idea. Not just simply to do food preservation workshops, but also if a family wants to go hang out at the park and it's raining, or it rains on a spring day and everybody runs under there, you know, that's it's not a bad idea. Okay, Saoirse.
Part of my question definitely was about the bathrooms. So thank you for getting into that, y'all. And that's still part of the question, because I think that we can agree, and you know, based on what Anand said, like we need a larger portion of bathrooms in our community than we have, and than what is probably possible through the scope of this project. But I'm wondering, throughout your research with this project, and throughout this like coming up as a recurring issue and topic of conversation, if you've been able to scope out like what would be potential places where bathrooms could be placed in the Whiteaker that are on like public land and are accessible and within eyesight. And so I want to know if there's been like any of that legwork done. Yeah.
It has started. So a great example is, you know, the loo that's at the riverfront is on the side of a path, right, in park property. The loo at the park blocks downtown, it's a bump out. It takes out a parking spot, and it's kind of in what's considered the right of way, right? So along our streets, the sidewalks, and a certain distance behind the sidewalks, usually about a foot, is considered public right of way, and then private property starts behind that. And so we are starting to look, and I say we, it's the city is starting to look with our input at what are potential zones that a restroom could go in that would fit within the public right of way or public property. And so no set areas yet. We've kicked around a few ideas, but I don't even want to throw those out yet, because part of it is that, you know, we see space. We then have to lay those magic lines of whose space is whose on it and determine, well, what might be the right fit. And then within that, it goes, where is the sanitary and water systems that might be nearby be able to connect? So that is that process that is ongoing currently.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Matt. I'm happy to hear that that kind of research and the groundwork is being laid for that. So that as we're looking at, because I know there's so many park redesigns happening, and I think that as that's happening, having that be on the forefront of people's minds is important. Thank you.
Thank you, Saoirse. We're actually are running over a little bit, but Jen, did you have a question?
Again, also about bathrooms, I can advocate for against the loo and for more stalls, at least in the bathroom, at some later date. But I also just kind of want to ask that you all are really great, both the park people for coming out and wanting to work with us and the community members that have supported the market. But I have to advocate on behalf of at least Saoirse, if not myself, in saying that sometimes when people talk out, like, hey, maybe the market can start teaching extra workshops and things like that. I just have to say I panic a little because I have a full-time job on top of this.
Volunteers, not the market, just to clarify.
Okay, yeah, which, you know, we would love to have more time to coordinate too. So, you know, I just want to, yeah, had to just say that. And thank you all for coming and for being a part of the conversation. And I really am glad to see it going in ways that I think will be good and hear that you're thinking about that need to be thought about. So.
Fantastic. Claire, did you have one more question?
Yeah, just like a few more quick things. So again, on the restroom, you know, thinking about it and living in the neighborhood, the restroom will end up in the park and all parks, regardless of whether or not there's a toilet there. It's just making the decision of whether or not you want the result to end up on the grass or in a toilet. Just to say that. Also, I can't believe I forgot to say this earlier, but please have proper bike parking infrastructure. Not like within half a foot of a fence or anything where you have to cram your wheel in sideways, but something like up to date with bike infrastructure. Also want to throw my hat in for the covered market space that has completely changed the downtown market space infrastructure. It's opened up whole new worlds in terms of programming, and so I think that the Whiteaker deserves that as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claire. And I would ask Allie, Alexis, and Matt, if you have any schedules to share, any meetings, any surveys, please send them to Thea, and Thea will forward them to the board, and then the board
Thank
can
you so
answer.
much. We will do that, Claire. I am a bike commuter. I feel you. So no worries, you're in good hands. Thank you all so much for having us. We really appreciate seeing your faces, and we hope to see you soon at our upcoming events.
Thank you very much for coming. We appreciate it. You're welcome to stay if you would like and watch, or please feel free to go if that's what you want to do.
I was going to make Margaret pick option 1 or 2 before we left, but
I'm sorry, Matt?
I was going to make you pick option 1 or 2 before we left. You know?
No, I tell you, I personally don't. I like the design of the sidewalk of number 1.
Okay.
I thought it was more appealing. I liked your comment. I used to live down there myself, like Gail, and I have a very good friend who lives right next door to the park. You probably met him, JD, tall, thin guy.
Yeah. Oh,
and his children play there. He play there. You know, JD, I've known his kids since they were very little, and he has issues, and understandably so. But the idea of moving the play structure to one location so that it can be seen from any location is a great idea, and more ways than one. But I did like the sidewalk. But I also, although people would talk about parking in the Whiteaker, and we don't have enough parking as it is, I also kind of liked the sidewalk and how you took up the parking area there and made it so that it was bike friendly and all of that.
No, that's awesome. I didn't want to put you on the spot, just kind of jokingly, but what you were saying, that's the kind of input that's really helpful for us. So if others here have input, please send us an email. We take all of that in, take the survey, and you know the gathering that we're going to have in September, we're hoping to have it in the park, weather permitting. If not, a fallback in the neighborhood, and it'll be this opportunity to kind of tell us each piece that you like. So. We hope to see you all there, and thank you very much for having us this evening.
Thank you very much for coming. We really appreciate it, and hopefully we'll see you in September. All right. And again, thank you guys very much for your patience and you know, waiting for the questions until they were done. Okay. Health and safety updates, which would be Anand and Dorianda. Anand, do you want to start?
Hold on. Yep, just trying to get things sorted out. Okay. Hey, hi everybody. That was fun. What is it that you want to hear first, Margaret? Because we've got a couple of different things.
That it's up to you.
Doesn't really matter. Okay.
No, I you know, you guys are
sure.
The last thing I want to do is I really don't like to micromanage.
That's totally fine. So Doriandra, do you want to put up all those wonderful things that you did with the last grant that you showed us at the previous meeting?
Sure. Yeah.
So we're gonna do a little thing here where we're gonna show you what happened from the previous one and where things are gonna go with the next one. So let's
that makes sense to me.
Kind of linear, you know.
Right.
I don't know. The smoke has kind of messed up my ability to kind of scatterbrain. If I'm lucky, I can do it in a straight line.
Okay. Sure, folks. Here's a little just simple project list that I put together real quickly for the Oakshire event, just so folks in the community could see what the timeline was. And so we ended up talking about that in our public health and safety meeting tonight to kind of encapsulate what the larger CBO grant did. So I put that in the chat and you can kind of move through it quickly. It's just real quick bullet points of what happened. And you know, those were the three major grants that the WCC received: the FEMA, the COVID-19 CBO grant, and then the CDC Foundation grant. So yeah, we've wrapped up all of that, and all of our narrative, activity reports, and expenditure have all been sent off. Thank you for Drew for helping me sort the fiscal part of it. It was great to have him on board. And as I, you know, reported to the first meeting tonight, that we are kind of paused and hoping that all will go well with those reporting numbers, given that we're on a list of 79 different grant cohorts. W is on the very bottom, so we have not heard yet of anything, you know, amiss or awry. So no news is good news, and I am just grateful that's closed out. So we are ready to totally launch, and we have launched into this next, which is a very much standalone grant. It's the Public Health Modernization Grant, and we were given funding for that in the tobacco funding, but I got permission to shift over to something that's a little bit more relevant for our community, which is the emergency preparedness. So.
Yep, that's right. And I'll tell you, considering everything that's been happening for the last few days, it's really timely, right? I mean, this is one of the sort of things that we could end up having to deal with on a larger scale, but there are quite a few different ones, and we're going to be discussing all various things that could happen as emergencies. And if you guys have any suggestions, things to look at, feel free to send them to me or Doriandra, and we'll put them in the mix of possible disasters that we might need to deal with at some point. And if
Can
we're really
I
lucky,
make one comment? I'm sorry to
absolutely.
interrupt. I just think that it's important to say that the grant that they just closed was the grant that started in 2021
Right.
and ended up with the housing grant. It was the entire grant. And if we all remember, there was a time frame where there was money that was misplaced. There were things that we couldn't find.
Right.
Well, Andrew and Doriandra sat down, hammered that out, and every penny has been accounted for. There was no misallocated funds, nothing like that as far as what happened with the original grant. So that's all good news. And I just want to say great job on that. I know you're getting ready to start on the new one, but I just think it's really important to recognize Ian and what a fantastic job that he did. And how all of that money, it was all in there. Andrew told me it's all there. Andrew, meeting our previous treasurer, he said somebody just has to find it. And thank you, Drew. Doriandra. Okay, that's all I had to say. And Doriandra, can you email that to everyone? So there's a lot on there, but I think it's important that the board gets an opportunity to see everything that we've all done together.
Yes, absolutely. I'd be happy to do that. Will do.
I saw a couple hands go up. Are we good? Can we just continue?
Almost.
And I won't interrupt anymore.
So Doriandra has so far designed a survey to go to the various businesses in the Whiteaker area as part of the disaster planning. And I've seen it. It looks great. And I think it's going to be very helpful as the beginning of finding out what our resources in our neighborhood are that could be used in a disaster. It's a good step in the right direction, and more is on the way. And that's all I have to say. Doriandra, would you like to add to that?
Sure. Yeah, so I've been spending the first 2 weeks of August really diving into look at coexisting emergency planning around us in Lane County and on a larger state level, and really trying to fine-tune that into something that works intrinsically for the Whiteaker, because yesterday was a kind of a fine example of that. Often our cooling centers or emergency centers are not walkable to the Whiteaker residents, and my hope with this grant is that we can specify and identify where residents could go immediately for support. And so one of the first steps I want to do with that is work with our local businesses to see where they can participate. So the form that Anand was mentioning is there in the chat. It's a draft version, but please feel free to look at it and send me input or suggestions. But my hope is that this goes to folks all around us that have the capacity to support, and whether that means offering temporary shelter or providing food and water, being able to be a backup source for power for people just to simply charge their phones. A lot happens during and right after disaster that can be traumatizing and overwhelming to communities. So that's kind of the first step. And then this will be kind of a model back on the Housing as Healthcare program, where I begin to receive a lot of data that then becomes spread out so that then as a board, we can come back to it and then make future decisions. So that's kind of the first step in this. And I'd love to show you just briefly kind of a work plan, if everybody would like to see it, just based on the next couple months. Okay, I will share my screen and we can look at this as a group. I think too, as we go, there's a lot to be said also about let's see, sorry, let's see. I had a hard time showing last time, and I guess that is because, oh, let's see, let me try it again, folks.
You almost had it.
Almost there, yep, technology. Okay, this is part of the horror of having way too many things open at once, but okay, let me show you this, and we can take a run at it together. Okay, are you all able to see that screen?
Yay.
Okay, super. I'd go straight to slides, but it seems to get tripped up for us. So hopefully you can all see this. Basically, what we have in accordance to grant compliance and what the small parameters of what we can do with this money are, this is kind of the first steps. And again, these can change when I submit the plan to OHA. It's understood that it's malleable as we dive into the program, as we look at our resources and co-location of services. But a rough kind of start is this. As you can see, it's I've been researching and reaching out to systems that are already in place to see how we can refine them for the specific needs of the community. Second part of this goal in the next month here is to begin these partnerships with either our community-based organizations around us or businesses, which really are going to be, I think, the base for sourcing. Secondly, if we move into the next couple months, this is where we can really dial in and do a couple important things. When we think about go bags, we have 2 communities that need them based on what they have already. And so I'm excited to kind of dive into that deeper and see what our housed members need and what our unhoused need. I'm really hoping that we can treat this program as we have done in the past with our public health campaigns, where we are engaging artists around us to create relevant material that's easily pushed through our social media, through media, that is retainable and informative without being laborious. So I'm excited. We've worked with great artists in the past, and it's been a pleasure to pay them for this work. So we have that ready to do. Also, thank you to Stephen for pointing me back to Megan Kemple, who is a community member, very engaged in sustainable food, and she's got a lot of great value, but in her work, aside from these kind of emergency preparedness groups, but she has in the past worked with the Whiteaker community to do the Map Your Neighborhood project, which is something she and I are discussing, and she's willing to come back and work with us on that. And I think that that's going to be critical, because it's essentially where we'll be able to divide the Whiteaker up into spaces where there are essentially liaisons that know who your neighbors are that have disabilities or are of vulnerable populations that need immediate support. And we can work within these smaller units to be immediately responsive, shutting off gas, connecting children that may be at school with their parents, such and such. So I feel like this is a really good community base that we can start in tandem with the larger connection with our business folks that can help. So I think this is going to take a while here to really launch, and a lot of kind of diving in work. If we go into December, I feel like, and again, this is just a mapping. We could accelerate this. It could go quicker than I thought. I would like to actually launch an event in October, but being pragmatic, I'm just putting December. So I think we'll probably be closer to October. But in any event, this is where it gets really exciting, where we can work in tandem with the Whiteaker Community Market. We can do events in Scobert Gardens. We can kind of continue some of the neat organizing that Julie has been doing in terms of grabbing folks and putting them in one place and do this education and community outreach with our people. This will be a very interesting month, because this will be the month where we will know what we're doing in terms of the full grant biennium. Our funding will become apparent at that time, and I think we talked about this in our last grant meeting, because legislation was kind of strung there for a while and not really making a lot of motion in terms of budget because of certain walkouts and issues there. This is why this number is pending. And so I'm excited that we have these couple months to really dial in and develop our program. And then in December, we'll be told what new funding will be for the remainder of the biennium. And it could be what we have already, it could double, it could quadruple, I was told by OHA. So this is our real time to just design what we want to do and get focused. We do have $11,250 to spend between August and December. And this is where it's going to get really fun to decide what we need to purchase for go bags. Also, Stephen had an excellent idea to add to our budget, which is the family radio communication sets. These are essentially walkie-talkies that once we locate who the primary people are in the neighborhood, whether it's us as the board and staff or other people that want to step up, these units will be extremely helpful because if all communication goes down, these FRC sets basically allow us to link to other city emergency central commands and ham radios. So it's a great communication link to start with. Also emergency radios that work under duress when there's no power. So a lot of work ahead of us. We did some great conversation tonight in our Public Health and Safety Committee about kind of like where we choose to start in terms of what disasters we're going to think about. And we were all laughing because the ones that we don't focus on will inevitably happen. So we're just going to have to dial in and just do everything. So a lot of work ahead of us, but that's kind of my rough plan.
Sounds like a plan.
Yep, we got a plan. So.
Well, I think that's about it for us at the moment. We did, Stephen is still working on some stuff for trauma-informed services, and we'll be getting back to that pretty soon. He's got documents for Doriandra and myself to go through. We've been working on it for a couple of months, and we're looking forward to finishing that off when we have a really nicely bow-tied product and sharing that with the board. Anything you want to say about that, Stephen?
Find the unmute button. Yeah, no, we're getting close to it's different types of trauma that we've come across in the neighborhood once we started digging, having experienced the unhoused trauma and how widespread that is, and then realizing all the other trauma in the neighborhood and how this is very much a crossroads of trauma in the city. And we will have this document with resources for dealing with trauma, and we will share that with the board as soon as we have approved it out of the Health and Safety Committee. So we're getting very close on that.
Yep. And that's about where we're at, Margaret. Oh, no, go ahead.
Kudos to Anand suggesting that we formalize the work we're doing on this and share it so it benefits others rather than just helps us understand it. So thank you.
Yeah, fantastic. And remember, I know people at the fire department. I know the county and the city CERT teams, incident commander. I know the incident commander from the state of Oregon very well. And if we want him to come to a meeting or him to get someone in our area to come do that, or he would actually probably help set us up with someone to come help us do a little go through of what we would do in case we did have an incident and we were on our own.
That's a good idea.
Logistics and all of that. So I have contacts with all of those people throughout the city and the county and the state. Actually, that's what I do for a living. So I'm more than happy to hook you guys up with anybody that you need with that. Doriandra, did you have something to say? You're on mute.
Thank you. If we have, it might be nice to have Drew share our tentative budget that we created for this program. And this is again the time frame from now through December. If everybody would like to take a moment and chat through that. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Great.
Please share it, Drew. Can't hear you. You're
He's
muted.
trying to organize.
Oh, I
Thought I
see.
hit the unmute button. That's not fair. Let me find my screen share. It's gonna be this puppy. Here we come. Our
Oh my gosh, I need my glasses.
Are you seeing something that says OHA FY fiscal year 2024
Yes.
Bridge Award? Oh, good. Good. Yeah,
Yeah.
it might be kind of small, but it's a quick walkthrough. Remember, this is probationary. At this point, the opening preamble is this puppy has been submitted, so there's the how and the what and the who. We made that happen. Our quick categories here we're talking about is who's doing what, any compensation to our fearless leader in project master coordinator, Doriandra, myself a little bit. And then this is a neat new area that we'll come back to and will serve as a segue to our next section for my portion of tonight's talk while Den's not here, is including any potential fringe benefits into officer compensation, things like health insurance or funding an IRA out of funds. It turns out this is something we can allocate money for. Various equipment, we've included nothing there, it's just know that it's there. Various equipment like those radios and or grab and go kits. We'll table the notion any potential soil and water test kits with maybe some training from the relevant science and scientists in that field to facilitate in the event of a flood or a disaster, how do we know when it's safe to grow or get back onto land or drinking water? A little bit for potentially some office supplies, although at this point, none. And of course, like we like to do, odds and ends for enticing, encouraging our enthusiastic community members to actually pay attention and participate to what we're doing. Dare I say, some innocent bribery in the form of gift cards and whatnots to thank folks for their time for participating. And then, of course, organizations, we've listed a couple here that we think will be able to help facilitate these goals, things like Shift, CERT, eWeb, potentially the fire department, some providing some catering, some food and safety testing training. And we come up with this as a budget of 31 grand, which we know is a little more than our 11 currently. But this is all, it is nothing, we're not held accountable to this budget. It is simply a template and a roadmap to build upon as we move forward. Questions, comments, concerns?
Yeah,
I just think it was pointed out incentives.
Yes.
Gail.
Oh, yes,
Put in
yes.
the note, incentives.
Adorable, Gil.
Am I reading it correctly that it's just about $2 grand listed for the actual like grab and go kits and supplies?
Yeah, we set that kind of low because we didn't know what we need to buy. And from the OHA grant cohort capacity, I've learned that a huge amount of equipment and supplies is attainable through OHA for free. We've given out hundreds of food boxes. Remember those beautiful canvas bags that had all PPE and everything related? So as legislation sorts out their budget, we will have an incredible amount of free spending power, as it were, with ordering from OHA to get things. And keeping in mind, again, 2 points of this. This is malleable. It is not at all written in stone. And as this program is so incredibly nascent, like literally less than 2 weeks in my desk, I know that we'll change this and move it around. Also, Drew pointed out at the bottom, the 31,250. I just want to correct that because that is all money that we have mostly received. And so that is all, everything on this is accounted. Our award right now is 31,250, but it may double and it may triple, and we won't know till January or December. So I expect that supplies thing will grow intensely once we know in the next couple months. So just to throw things down.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Doriandra.
Sure.
I would make a suggestion that before we decide what goes in the kit, you decide how many kits that you need.
Yeah.
And are they a 1-person kit, a 5-person kit, a 10, a 50? And exactly what is the purpose of the kit, because there's several ways that you can go.
Very true.
Just suggestions.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's true. Family kits.
Anything else that you have, Doriandra, for you?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, so we're
Thanks,
good
Drew.
with the health and safety update. So we need your contract, Doriandra. We need to see it, please. So I emailed everyone a copy. Since we're starting a new grant, we already voted what we were going to pay Doriandra, and that we were going to do this and that, but we actually need an official contract that we vote on, and we say yes, and that gets signed, documented, and gets a copy goes with us, and a copy gets sent to our lawyer. So can you share that on the screen, Doriandra?
Oh, okay, sure. Drew, can you turn that off, and I wonder, can I share over you? Oh, I can. Okay. Let me grab it from the email that you sent today. Okay, here we go.
So Saoirse, am I right that you are now the Whiteaker Community Council? Is that right? Because we're going to vote on a few things.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, great.
I can change my name just to make that more clear for the record.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Drew. Okay, let's get this.
Sorry, I stopped my camera, not the share camera at first. This should be all good.
Okay, here we go. So, can everybody see this?
Yeah, did everyone get a chance to read it today? Is there anyone that did not have the opportunity to read through the contract? I make a motion that we accept the contract that Doriandra is presenting.
I would be happy to second that.
Great. Do we have any discussion regarding it? Going on?
I don't have any discussion, but I would love to to scroll through it on just to have it shared.
Yeah, can you
or
see?
Scrolled through? I can, yes.
You can.
And I
Okay,
did read through it today, but I think just for the
sure. Yeah, let's go through it real quick. It's basically following the initial planning work that is based on the work plan that I submitted to OHA, and then the budget Drew and I built. So if we just start at the top here, it's really replicating the CBO partnership, which happens in all of these grants, to try to connect with other emergency services. So we've got CERT, EWEB, Eugene Police and Fire, Eugene Mission, BEST, Mackenzie River Keepers, Disaster Relief Trail, Shift Community Cycles. A lot of biking in there because, as we know, if infrastructure collapses, biking may be the only form of transportation and the best in many ways. So just going through, identify base models of emergency planning within Lane County and restructure to accommodate the specific needs of the Whiteaker, mentioning working with the artist, managing the WCC message output and advertising formats that will broadly reach community about the program details and services offered, And then I'll be developing WCC community events that will be training for these new protocols of emergency, engaging local businesses to identify what can be offered as meeting points. And then also, connecting with the City of Eugene and Greater Lane County to kind of implement what we're doing, share it, and hopefully co-locate with them in some capacity. So going through the normal list of tasks that I do, I oversee social media or services through other contractors as approved through the board and OHA, manage and write, and then create contracts for any media outlets, which include our radio partners with KRVM, KLCC, billboards that we've done in the past, mobile products, Eugene Weekly, and then paper stuff from Instaprint. And then these are a list of the meetings that I attend, obviously our own council work, but then related to the grant process and as required by the grant stakeholders, I attend these following Oregon Health Authority meetings throughout the month.
It's cool that you get to attend all of those and stay so in the loop and involved with both that community and what's happening.
It really is. And I always just send a nod of thank you to Ian for throwing me kind of in the deep end with these folks, because it's a stunning connectivity with other CBOs around the state. And so having the ability to talk to Coos County and, during the pandemic, it was stunning to learn what other places were experiencing and how, we can all learn together and really push our resources forward. And the OHA is a stunning group of folks unto themselves. So yeah, good point, Saoirse. I do enjoy that part. This is, go ahead.
Well, I didn't mean for you to, I don't want you to have to read through the whole contract.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. We're done. This is just the part that I was worried that the board might be confused. So I'm glad to have this quick opportunity. Also, Ian's famous quote was when we all started this, Doriandra grants are as clear as mud. And that has proven completely true. This giant piece of chaotic language here does not include everything I will do, because it's again an umbrella of the public health modernization grant. And as you can see, there's everybody doing all kinds of things, 79 different cohorts, but we will only be working on our specific area. So I'm not doing all of this. I could not. So yeah. That's just for language and law. So anyway, that's all this is. And this is just stating that I'm doing this from August 1st to December 30th of 2023. And then once we know what the new funding is, we'll move forward. And I'm doing 20 hours a week, and that's it. This is all the lawyer approved mumbo jumbo so, okay.
Awesome.
Okay, any more conversation?
I'd like to propose an addition.
What is that?
That is, as remember, I had just mentioned or alluded to the ability to include fringe benefits into director officer compensation. You may not know, maybe you've heard through your employers, the state of Oregon now has a mandate for virtually all employers to offer a retirement savings program. This is Oregon Saves is a Roth IRA clone. If your employers aren't talking to you about it, you need to ask them if they don't already offer some sort of retirement savings plan. That's a little plug there. We have proposed making Doriandra a W-2 wage receiving, potentially salaried, but W-2 receiving employee of the community council. The proposed addition to this contract is let's maybe jump the gun and include a clause to fund an IRA of one sort for her, so that if and when she does indeed become a W-2 receiving employee, she will already have the mechanism to being compliant with state wage and withholding laws.
So
up to $6,000 would be her funding maximum for the year.
So just to make a comment on that, and Gail, I see that your hand's up, so just give me a second. I think I mean, Briandra and I have talked several times about her becoming an employee, and we talked about doing it in January. If the funds are available and bringing it to the board. Ian discussed it before. That has always been the plan. So if we make an amendment to this contract that we have right now that we're discussing, then we have to do it all over again. Is that correct, Briandra? Yes. I can't hear you.
I believe so, but again, Drew is all things this.
Well, but as far as what's appropriate for OHA, and I mean, you've been dealing with the lawyers and writing the contracts for 2 years.
Right.
If we added an amendment like that into your contract, we would have to redo the contract as it is now, correct?
I believe so, because then I go from independent contractor to employee.
No, see,
No.
but and that's the thing. See, is proves that she's not an employee.
She doesn't have to be. To include.
Go ahead, Gail.
Sorry, I usually keep my camera off because it's glitchy. So if it gets glitchy, I apologize. But I just have to jump in here to say 2 things. First of all, always has been a goal to help Doriandra move into a W-2 situation. Secondly, we absolutely cannot do that without an executive director, because if we create an employee position without somebody to manage that employee, guess who manages that employee? We do. And we are volunteers, and we are not qualified to do that. We don't have the appropriate infrastructure to create a salaried position yet. We can do that. Those are all absolutely doable goals, but they require an awful lot more work than just adding an addendum today. That's my first point. The second point is, unfortunately, Drew, I don't think you actually can make an addendum because you're not a board member, you're a contractor, which I totally respect and admire. Our contractors 1,000%, but the rules state that motions, seconds, and voting can only be done by members of the board at a board meeting, which means that, unfortunately, although I appreciate your enthusiasm and I totally support your desire to see us do better by our contractors and eventually our employees, which I hope we do have, we can't actually take that up with this motion at this time, because this is not the time for that. That would be what we call new business, and this is what we call old business, meaning it's already on the agenda. So if you would like to discuss that further, and I think it's a great idea, we should talk about these things further, but that needs to be on a new agenda as new business, and there are a lot of things to talk about. So yeah, I think we need to jump in that. Absolutely, we need to be compliant. None of that applies to contractors right now, so we are compliant. But I love you for looking ahead, and I do think these are questions we should take up, just maybe not right now. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. I was trying to get to that. Claire, thanks for getting there the quick way. Claire, did you have a question?
No, I was just clap reacting to what Gail said in agreement.
Okay. Does that make sense, Drew? Andrew?
It absolutely does. I'll reclassify my statement as merely a provocative whisper for the time being.
Okay, fantastic. Do we have any more discussion regarding the contract? It's been motioned and seconded. All those in favor? All right, I think it passes unanimously. Did you get all that, Claire, for this motion?
Yep, I did. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Now you can cash that check, Doriandra.
Mama's getting paid.
Just so that y'all know, and I hope that you don't mind me saying so, is that Doriandra is really good at her job, and she also has a very high level of ethics, and so she's had that check for a very long time since we approved to pay her through December, but would not cash it until she had a contract that we actually voted and approved on file to make sure that it was all done within legal ramification, or within, you know what I mean. Sorry, I'm tired. My eyes are burning. I'm sure everybody else's are. Okay, really quick. Drew, 2021 taxes. Are they good to go the way that they are?
They're mediocre. We were going to vote on something else. Well, you all were. This is not me here. And that was potentially to pay for the return, correct me if I'm wrong, as it is and be done with it, or I'm going to try and convince us, not you all, to not vote to pay for this return, make some small changes and file it in-house. And I have the capacity to do that.
Okay.
Would you like to see my list, or shall I just talk us through it? I'm not
Please
going to
tell
put
us
you
more.
through.
Yeah.
I'm not going to put you through walking through line by line the 990 and what I see and a deeper dive. But remember, I'm going to try and convince you to not vote for allowing Moxie return accounting to pay for this the return as they mocked it up. One thing is, right off the bat, they had chosen the cash method of accounting. There's two: principal, accrual, and cash. Cash is generally not considered best practice or the way to go in any sort of nonprofit accounting situation. They listed voting members of the council as 3 on the return. This is a line item of the return itself. We know there's 4 at a minimum. Claire, I'll need your address. That's Claire Roth, to add you for completeness purposes. We also have the option, here's an outstanding question, to add the trustees at large. We needn't, but we can. Doesn't necessarily make return a stronger or not. The takeaway here is they only have 3. They miss that there's a secretary listed, that we have one, we use one, and they were blind to the topic. I'll come back to my thoughts on a CT12. That's in-house. I'm going to chuck Dan under the bus a little bit while he's not here.
Drew, I just DM'd you my address, just so you know.
Oh, thank you. They, per QuickBooks and profit and loss and any accounting statements and reports, there is absolutely zero match between what's on paper from a reports perspective and what's on the tax return when it comes to management compensation, any contractors payments. No idea. And I can't tie out what, maybe it's this plus that is one of those things and X plus Y is another one of those things. So that's a head scratcher for me. There is a place on the Form 990, our nonprofit return, where we can list grants and other assistance paid to domestic individual members. There are none listed on the return so far. This is where the majority of our funding goes. So that's also a head scratcher and may help to explain some of the misalignment in management compensation and contractor payments as per the tax return. Another major heading category on a Form 990 is professional fundraising services listed. The implication here with professional fundraising is that we're employing a fundraising group, a body. It can get further afield into gambling or gaming services or this and that. This is a categorical error. What we know is what the dollar amount on the return in that category is actually what the Whiteaker Community Council has paid to the Whiteaker Community Market, which is the next bullet point to address. That's what the 990 would consider supported organizations. We can include the market as somebody that we partner with for the betterment of the bigger community and on the tax return, and that simply has not been done. My final thought here is there is a large discrepancy between what the tax return reports as mocked up as ending balance in accounts and what actually was in bank accounts at our fiscal year end of July 30th. And that's about $43,500 over underreported.
Can you repeat that again? It's about how much?
$43,500.
So will that take us under the $500,000 mark?
No, this has nothing to do with that.
Okay.
That's our starting spot on the return. This is the very bottom of the return after we account for money that's gone out to its various places and things that we've spent money on. What the tax return lists is shy of what's in the bank accounts of like 43 grand. So which is very interesting. They seem to have not accounted for a big chunk of money that went out the door. And that's my 2 bits. I'm open to questions. And in light of these fairly top to bottom, left to right, the entire tax return, as mocked up by Moxie Accounting, seems to be remiss on many points and topics. And I would like to persuade you all to not vote to pay for this return. I promised too I was going to chuck Dan under the bus a little bit. We had a last minute Oregon reporting requirement, which is dully handled, but I noticed that Dan got two of your names wrong. It's there's two ends in Margaret's last name, and Salreese does not end in a rose, R-O-S-E. It's R-S-E on the end. Correct me if I'm not wrong.
My
So
name, it does have two ends at the end.
Thought so. Bingo.
Yeah. So I'm sure that there's more questions than just me, but so just to put it all in a nutshell, I guess what I'm going to ask you, because I did receive an email from Moxie Accounting, I explained to them that we had to vote on this. Things hadn't been being voted on. We're not okay with that. It's against our charter. They said, great, take your time when you vote on it. We still do expect to get paid no matter what. That being said, if we do not vote on paying them, if we decide to set that aside and take your expertise, which is what you get paid for, and we email Moxie, and are you willing to email Moxie Accounting, CC the attorney and myself with it, and explain to them why we're not paying them?
Well, I could do that.
When you say not paying them, are we like not paying them for services rendered, or like not paying to file the tax return which has not been done yet? Because those
the taxes that they did are wrong. And I believe that I don't think they did the taxes. I think that they hired someone who was working for us to do the taxes. I was told one day in a conversation when we were going through deposits, which is part of why we brought Drew on to go, and I had him go through the taxes. I was told by someone when I went through the grant deposits, and I said, okay, this is from this grant, this is from this grant, because I had to go to the bank. I sat at the bank and we went through every deposit since 2021 that came from OHA, from FEMA, from everything. And I was told that if we changed that, it was going to mess up our taxes if we made it right. And I don't know if we'll owe them money or not, but I think what he's saying is to just pursue it a little further and tell them that they didn't get it right. Is that correct, Drew? I mean, what are you proposing?
Well, one of two things. One is we can use this list to say when and where that's not correct so far, and if they're unwilling to look at these areas and address them, then we move on and disengage from their service. Or present it as such that, hey, an independent third party had a look and found some issues that may be of concern. Would you give these a second look and potentially make corrections or changes to the return? It's not filed, it's mocked up. And this is it's very changeable. See what they have to say about having a second deeper dive into these various areas. And then if they say yes, we can consider proceeding with their paying for their services and the transmission of the tax return.
Okay. And just so that everyone knows, the attorney from the Center for Nonprofit instructed me to not pay them yet and to have Drew go through them and check them out to make sure that they were correct. Are there any questions, comments?
That seems pretty right on to me.
What do you
I
think,
want to
Gail?
highlight what Gail. Oh, go ahead, Gail. I just wanted to highlight what Gail had said in the chat, which was, can we bring this to the lawyers? Do we have a case to refuse to pay them for a poorly done return? I just wanted to highlight that.
I already did that. I already took it to the lawyers. I sent it to the lawyers. The lawyers told me not to pay, which is part of why it hasn't been paid yet. And when we hired Andrew, I was told to have him go through those. He knew that when he was brought on, and to see if they were correct. Go ahead, Gail.
My usual tack is to give people the benefit of the doubt and assume that they've made an error innocently. However, it sounds very much like that may not be what's going on here. I don't know enough details, but from what Margaret is suggesting, it may be that this was not filled out by someone who had the skills to do it correctly, especially since Drew has found so many errors. Now, the real question is every single day that we don't pay our taxes, we have to pay interest on what we owe. So I wonder, rather than sending them a nice note and saying, hey, we found these problems, can you fix them? You know, it's not really supposed to be our job to have to audit the people who are paid to do our financial work. And the fact that we had to audit them tells me that they have not done their own diligence, and that is grounds for not paying them. If we were to file the return the way they've done it right now, we would be, first of all, it would be wrong, obviously, on multiple levels, and we would, and there's money that isn't accounted for. Like, we would have to be cleaning up this mess afterwards when the IRS came back and said, what the hell is this? So recognizing that we have a fiduciary responsibility to the money that is, you know, a part of the board, I wonder if we can't just have Drew go ahead and finish and file our taxes for us and refuse to pay on the grounds that it wasn't done. I mean, they did not do the service for which we contracted with them. And if they would like to bring it to something bigger, you know, maybe they talk to our lawyer. I don't know. I'm not litigious in this way, but honestly, I get a little mad when it looks like people are messing with our money. And I feel very strongly that something untoward has been going on with our money, at least over the last year. I'm very glad to know all the money from the grants has shown up. All of those pennies are accounted for. But as for what happened with the last board, there were a lot of things that didn't sit well with me and didn't feel right to me. And I don't want to be in a situation where I feel like I'm supporting more potential malfeasance. And I think anybody who looks like they've done us dirty, we should cut them loose. That's just my feeling.
I would agree with you 100%, Gail. And the truth is looking forward, if we think about if we do get audited, and here we're having a conversation right now that we know that those taxes are wrong, and he found mistakes in there, we're in trouble. I mean, and does Dennis have an opinion? Yes, but I'm not going to share what it is on screen. So I'm not comfortable personally with just not paying them. I am comfortable with emailing, which, by the way, we do have a new attorney and she is a partner. I did get us a new attorney at the firm, someone that will be a little more active for us. And she happens to be one of the partners that is there. I would rather reach out to them, see what they have to say. And what is the interest, Drew?
Well, go back a step. Remember, exempt organizations don't pay federal tax. So there's no interest or penalty or interest accrued on any late pay. There is a
Thank
late
you.
file.
I forgot about that. Thank you, Drew.
There is a late file that can be assigned, but if we've been extended, and this is a detail, I don't have any record of an extension being submitted. And the Oregon collects essentially a stamp tax, a minimum fee that has been paid, and that's all resolved. So you know that's off the table.
Anand, did you have a comment?
No, actually, Drew answered it already, but thank you.
Okay, so do we all agree? Claire, do you have anything to say?
No.
I think do you agree that we should take it back to the attorney and see what they say?
Yep.
Okay. I mean, we hired Andrew for a reason, and this was one of them. So we'll take it to the attorney. Andrew, if you could email Susan and just CC me on it, and CC Dan on it as well, since he is the treasurer, that would be great. And then if she doesn't respond within a reasonable amount of time, I will kick the can a little bit.
Perfect, will do.
Okay, so I believe that we're done with this part. We do actually owe the lawyer. It's under the $500 mark, but it's $450. So I make a motion that I just put it on our. We no longer have a credit card. We got rid of that. But we do have a debit card that works just like a Visa. Do I have a second that we just pay that?
Looks like Gail seconded it.
Great. So Gail seconded the motion. Do we have any discussion? All those in favor? All right. It looks like it is unanimous. What time is it? Okay, we're getting down there. So, Ice Cream Social is coming up. For those of you, many of you know what the Ice Cream Social is. And I'm going to tell you, Julie has worked really hard on all of this stuff. She has scheduled, she is doing a family day in the park from 1:30 to 6 and would very much like some board participation. The Ice Cream Social part will be from 3 to 5. We did go ahead, the city agreed to pay the ice cream truck that we had discussed. And they're going to come and soft serve for 2 hours. And it'll be as much ice cream as anybody can eat. But it would be nice. It is outside. It's in the park. It's in Scoburg Gardens. So please, everyone, be there at least from 3 to 5.
Look like
That's on
weather's gonna
Saturday
be
the
nice.
26th, correct?
That is on Saturday the 26th. That's correct.
The 26th of August.
Yes.
Okay.
And she would love some volunteers. I told her that I will volunteer. I will come and throw some water balloons at kids in the park. She's working out some games, that kind of stuff. She is starting at 1:30. So please, let's get out there and get to know our neighbors. Let's play a little bit, even if you just come for an hour, leave, and then come back at 3. That would be great. Okay. So we really, and I don't think we're gonna have time to talk about it, unfortunately. But we really need to hire a social media person.
Yeah.
Saoirse does it. I do it. Claire does it. Some days I sit here. I can't tell you, going and posting on 20 websites that we have masks and water available at the grocery store took me hours and cost me money because it was important and we needed to get it done, but it's in the middle of my workday.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gail. So we need to talk about. I would like to make a quick motion that we do kind of like when we hired Doriandra. And Saoirse, I would ask for you, Doriandra, myself, if anyone else wants to be involved, that we put a post out and that we actually hire somebody that we don't know. That we take applicants, we go through, we take 3 applicants and we interview them and we hire who's going to be best for the job. And part of that will also mean that they come and attend at least the general meeting once a month so that they know what's happening. What's happened with social media people in the past is that they have no idea what the board's doing because they don't attend any of our stuff. So it takes away, just like what it's already doing, it would defeat the purpose because I'm spending hours posting stuff. Saoirse's spending hours posting stuff. Claire's spending hours posting stuff. Instead, we'd have somebody calling us saying, what do I post? What do I post? What do I post? What do I post? So part of their position would be to attend a meeting, to go through, even watch the videos afterwards. Something so that they are up to date on what they need to post and that they keep sharing them. And I bet 2 days a week, you know, a couple hours a day. It's not something that we need a big thing about. Any comments about that?
I'm sorry I didn't like raise my hand or anything. Is it okay if I just kind of hop into
Please.
it? So I think that we shouldn't, even though our need is great, we shouldn't really like run into it. Like I think we should take careful time creating a job position and then make sure it's something that we all read and review and you know make sure it's up to par for like what we need as an organization. That's one thing. Another thing is I don't see why this potential person shouldn't be attending both general and board meetings. I mean, I think a lot of the meat of what we do happens in board meetings, and so I don't think it's too much of an ask to ask them to attend. That's 4 hours a month, which, you know, I assume they'd be working more than 4 hours a month, but like posting on social media is only half the battle. I think they also have to know what's going on. And like you said, people in the past doing social media haven't known or like otherwise haven't really been connected with what we do. And yeah, I think those are my only 2 comments. But I love the idea of having a social media person. I also would advocate for them having some kind of part in creating the digest as well, especially because everything these days is integrated in terms of like you can have a when I say digest, sorry, that's a term from work. I meant newsletter. My brain hasn't switched from work to WCC. And mailer. You know, these days everything is integrated. So what goes on our Facebook can go in our newsletter, can go in our mailer. It all isn't that hard. And I think that the right candidate will be able to produce something that tells the Whiteaker, no matter if it's paper form or Facebook form, what we're doing.
Fantastic. And part of what I propose is that as a hiring committee, that we put together a job description and we bring it to the board and say, here's a job description. We put it out there. Does anyone have anything they want to add? Any opinions on it? Okay, great. And then we try to find someone within the neighborhood. Saoirse, does that work for you?
Yeah, I think that all of this sounds good. Claire, I really liked your additions. I do want to say that, like, as someone who does a ton of social media work across a bunch of different jobs, it requires to do it well and to do it authentically, and there is pretty much no point in doing social media work unless it is going to be done well and authentically. You really need to be involved with a space. Like, this person needs to be attending our meetings, yes, but they also need to have a vested interest in the neighborhood. They need to know what's going on anyway. Their mind needs to be in a place where they are like working creatively and not just being like assigned by Doriandra, who I assume would be managing this person,
That's correct.
to just post things, because that doesn't create genuine and like engaging content. And so I don't know, social media, it's like one of those things where it just
Right,
needs to
and
be done well to be worth it, which means that we also need to pay someone well. And I think that people don't really like think that doing social media work takes skill or like time or things, but it really does to be done well, and that needs to be compensated.
Okay, just so we have 5 minutes left, just so that everybody knows.
Yeah, I just want to pop in real quick to say I was on the last hiring committees, and we were extremely thorough and careful in our selection. We were also extraordinarily lucky that Doriandra showed up. We also have always had a commitment that we compensate the people who work for us, and our previous social media people have been paid very well. The trouble is that we did not get the quality of work we needed or deserved, honestly, as an organization. So I'm hopeful that whoever's on the new hiring committee, and Saoirse, I hope you would consider being on it because you have a lot of good input and feeling for the position, that those people take a lot of time to make sure that what they're asking for is clear, and that the people that they interview know that, and that they take the time to pick the right person. We have done it rather in a rather rushed way in the last couple of ways because we were up against it and needed to get the word out. I think we should take a little more time now. That's my input. Wish I could be a part of it, but as you all know, I'm a little overwhelmed with life. But I'm happy to give my feedback.
It's all right. And part of my plan and my thought process is exactly what you said, Saoirse, and it's something that we can talk about as a hiring committee, is that person is able to work independently and that they actually live in the neighborhood. I think we were extremely lucky to get Andrew. He lives in the neighborhood. He knows what's going on. Clearly, he's vested and wants to participate. Doriandra, and then we've got to get out of here.
Just a quick thing. In Cindy Kohler's budget for us, for a neighborhood association, there's funds available for web management and hosting. And Drew has indicated an interest in doing that. So I would like this to try to minimize managing the two social medias in the past has been a profound time sink and turned into many extra volunteer hours for me. If we go this route, I would very much like it if we have like a chain of communication. If Drew, who is totally invested in this organization and is up to speed with everything, because he's working with me a lot now too, is the person that's pushing out the changes on the website. If the website is our very first point of contact with people, a social media person can gather a lot of information from Drew in that way and then amplify the message out. And so I think that Drew should be paid separately with the neighborhood association fund for his work to do the website, if that's even possible with the board, whatever. And then we have kind of a chain of information that's less of a time sink for me, who's working to write and actualize the programs, and Drew, who's running all the books. So does that make sense? I'm tired too.
I understand what you mean, but
Okay.
for me, social media includes the website.
But Drew doesn't want to do social media. He's
correct.
Website
He doesn't.
savvy.
So if we hire someone and pay them, then they need to be able to collate what happens on our website with what happens in social media. And they do need to come to our meetings.
Sounds like this committee is going to be fun and have lots of things to talk about. I would make a motion that anybody who would like to be on that committee raise their hand right now so we can get a list so those folks can meet separately and move forward. I see Saoirse. I see Margaret.
Yay.
Anybody else?
Do it.
I see Doriandra. Clara, did you want to be involved in that?
I need to say no more things.
Okay.
Question really quick, and we got to sign off. Can Drew be on that committee?
Absolutely, because
Yeah,
all
Drew,
volunteers can be on all
the
committees.
committee?
Would you like to be on the committee, Drew?
Okay, I'll sign up.
Okay, great. So everybody just email me, please, that's interested, and we'll get a list together. All right. 8:59. Fantastic. We have other things to talk about, but we got to wrap it up. You guys, great meeting. I think that we got a lot done. Doriandra, thank you very much for your great presentation. Drew, thank you. We will chat after you email the lawyer. Okay. All right. It got big all of a sudden. All right. Any last words?
Just to let you know, I'll be able to post the notes almost immediately. I'll get the video up tomorrow afternoon after I get off work.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. That's
Thanks,
much appreciated.
everyone.
Will you
Good
share
night.
it on the WCC page?
Yep.
Thank you. You're the best. All right. It's 9 o'clock. Everybody have a great evening.
You too.
Thank you for your time.